welcome back to Caitlin's Corner. Yeah, we're shimmying because why not? Many of you told me in the comments of a few of my videos that you're already back to school, which is just so upsetting. I'm so sorry for you. I go back in a few weeks, so I will be in the same boat very soon. But because many of you are already in school mode, I thought it'd be helpful to share with you some of my study tips. I myself am definitely no study expert, but I am going into my third year of university, so I feel like by now I've kind of figured out a system for, I don't know, talking with my hands a lot, but tackling my finals and quizzes and tests. Hopefully by sharing my process, there's something in this video that can help you out during those times when you're internally crying at your desk and you have tons of textbooks and notebooks open, wondering how the heck you're gonna do this. I've been in that boat, I will be in that boat again, so let's travel together. My first tip is probably the most important tip of all and the most obvious because we pretty much do it, we hopefully do it 24/7, and that is to breathe. If you're feeling really nervous or anxious or stressed before a test, sometimes taking just a few deep breaths really puts things into perspective. Sometimes it puts things into perspective for a few seconds and then you're stressed again, but at least you have a few seconds of relief. It's really important to stay calm though, and I really try and take this tip with me when I'm just about to write the exam, when the paper's right in front of me and I'm waiting for the TA to say you can begin. Especially if I'm not confident with the material, those few minutes are so nerve-wracking and my blood starts pumping and basically my emotions are going here and I need to take a few breaths just to bring me back here so that I can actually give myself the best chance to do well. Once I remember to breathe and stay calm, my first official step in the studying process is to reread my lectures and my reading notes. I always go through this process in chronological order, so obviously start with the older stuff and make your way to the newest material. Now, I personally don't just reread everything because I don't find I retain information that way or as effectively that way. I will have a notebook or a blank sheet of paper beside me, and as I go through each unit, I write down all of the major key points or key words in that unit. And again, I try and keep it in the order that we discussed those topics in. So I'm not making notes about everything, I'm just creating like a big outline, a very detailed outline of everything that we've learned. After I do my first initial detailed reread of everything, of all the material, then I can use the outline to kind of test my understanding of everything. And then any area or keyword that I'm kind of iffy on, I'll put a star next to it, and I know that that's somewhere that I need to go brush up on my understanding so that next time I go through the outline, I'm able to recall information very quickly for all of the topics. For me personally, the outline mind map type of approach to studying really helps cement details in my head, but for some that just isn't effective. So if you are a more audio person, you could even reread your notes and record yourself on your phone and then listen to those recordings when you're walking to class or making dinner. Also, a memorization tip that has seriously helped me out is to use acronyms. This tip is life-saving, especially when I have to recall long lists of information. I don't know about you, but in tests, details will kind of slip out of my head, even details that throughout the whole time that I've been studying, I've never forgotten before. I go to a test and it's like I forget how my name even is spelled. So in situations like those, having a lettered and acronym to kind of push me in the right direction can sometimes just be enough to spark me remembering what that piece of information was. Something else I really like to do is to connect different ideas or definitions with words or sounds that kind of help me remember in the same way that an acronym would. For example, when I was first learning what the supply and demand curve looked like, this is many moons ago, I figured out that, you know, supply has the word up in it, so supply, the supply curve goes up to the right, and the demand curve is down, so down demand, the supply. Obviously now I don't need that because I've had a few years of economics courses, unfortunately, so those definitions or the looks of the supply and demand curve are pretty stuck in there. But I do this all the time when I'm studying. So if you had a little window into my brain while I was writing a test, you would just see a lot of that kind of stuff sprinkled all over the place. It's a crazy place to be. Study tip number 3, obviously, I think it's pretty obvious, is to do practice homework questions or even practice tests. For math type courses, and I would assume science courses too, doing questions is really the only way that you can really ensure that you're grasping the material. Practice is very important for those types of subjects and for other subjects as well, but I think with mathy courses especially, if you don't do practice questions, you can reread how to do something all you want, but you got to actually be able to do it yourself. I will always try and do a handful of questions from each unit so that I get a good variety, and then based on which questions I'm not doing as well on, I will do more practice in those areas so I'm not wasting time in areas that I'm pretty okay with. I also always try and do past tests, especially if your prof is providing them. You want to make sure you take advantage of the fact that you have examples of the types of questions that they've asked in the past, because that's a really good indication of the types of questions you're probably going to be asked on your test. And sometimes past test questions appear in your test, and then you're like, oh my god, I am rocking this question because I've already done it before. That rarely happens though, at least in my experience, unfortunately, but when it does, it feels pretty good. My tips when doing past tests: to A, treat them like real tests so that you can truly see where your understanding level is at. And secondly, don't do past tests that aren't written by your prof. Yes, sometimes doing past tests from your course code specifically is helpful, but you always have to proceed with caution, because in my experience, every prof, even profs that are teaching the same course, have different expectations and ask questions differently. I only say that because there have even been situations where even tests that my prof has written before are completely unlike the one that gets handed to us in style and types of questions. Like, in every possible way it's different, and you're sitting there and you're like, what is this sorcery that is in front of me? And the worst thing you can do in those situations is panic. So you kind of have to go into the test just being fully prepared for anything to be thrown at you and to just do your best, because once you're there, that's all you can do is do your best. And sometimes I've written things that I'm like, well, this makes no sense, and I get perfect marks on a question, and I'm like, how did that happen? And then on the question that I thought I actually knew what I was talking about, I got 0 marks. Explain that to me. It's very confusing. Once I do all my rereads, I've done tons of questions and tests, I just do a quick overview and call it a day. I want to make it clear, especially to those of you who are going into university for the first time and are probably worried about testing, is that there have been many times where I've walked into a test and an exam that's worth quite a bit of my grade and I don't feel ready. And I probably am not ready. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that it always works out, because I've had a few blunders in 2 years of university, and you will too, but it's not always the end of the world. And chances are, if you're having troubles, especially in a specific area of the course, there are probably a lot of people having troubles as well, and that is usually reflected in a bell curve once all the marks come out. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, once you write the test, let it go and don't worry about it. I thought it was really important to include that point in there, because I think too many people doubt themselves, including me, once they've written something and it's been handed in, and you just start replaying it all in your head and how you would have done it differently. But it's useless to think that way, because what's done is done. So, you know, just start focusing on the next thing that you have to tackle. That concludes my study tips video. If you found something in this video to be helpful, then please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below, what is your study tip, your #1 study tip for new students or veteran students. I really love the fact that you guys are so willing to help each other out in the comment section. So yeah, let's continue the helpful advice down below. I will see you all very soon with a new video, and until then, bye everyone.
Wear me down, weigh me down, just give me anything. Forget the doubt.